Welcome to Work and Earn. This material is not intended to constitute any tax, investment, or legal advice. If you need investment, legal, tax advice, and/or credit counseling, please consult within a professional within those areas. Today, we'll be talking about employment in general, but we'll also be talking about topics such as deciding whether to work while you're in school, payroll and employee benefits, interviewing and salary negotiation tips, hourly non-exempt positions, and salary, which are exempt positions, and the differences between the two. Now, often students don't have a choice about working while in school because they have to work in order to get through college. Research has shown that students who work between 1 to 15 hours per week are more likely to graduate than students who work more hours or those who do not work at all. On the other hand, if you want to earn more money and potentially reduce your need for student loans or reduce the amount that you borrow, then you could consider working more hours. But remember, you may also need to take fewer classes to accommodate your work schedule. Keep in mind that part-time employment will delay your graduation, postpone your ability to earn a higher income, and possibly impact your eligibility for some federal financial aid. If you choose this route, you may find that taking classes during the summer can make up some of the credits you were unable to earn the previous year. Or you may choose to work fewer hours and take a heavier class load while possibly increasing the amount you borrow. By taking extra classes, you may be able to graduate and enter the workforce earlier. Now, keep in mind that the longer it takes to complete your program of study, the more you will pay in total, not only because tuition and fees tend to increase from year to year, but also in an indirect way because you may be giving up potential earnings while you are in school. If you decide to work while you're in school, your next decisions are about where you want to work, how many hours you can work, and if you want a temporary or permanent job. So jobs come in many different types. While you're in school, you may qualify for work study as part of your financial aid, which allows you to work part-time in a department or office on your campus or sometimes off. Now, schools may also hire for part-time positions even if you were not offered a financial aid on your award package. Now, working off campus while you're in school is another option. One potential drawback of an off-campus job is that your employer may not be as flexible or predictable about your schedule as an on-campus job. Another is that you may have to arrange transportation to get to your workplace. Part-time positions are often paid per hour. Hourly jobs are also considered to be non-exempt, which means you're not exempt from earning overtime. So in other words, if you work more than 40 hours per week as an hourly employee, you will earn overtime. These positions are often in customer service, clerical, or maintenance areas. Full-time jobs can be hourly or salary. If you're a salaried employee, that means you're exempt from overtime laws. So you'll be paid the same amount per pay period, regardless of how many hours you work. These are typically like executive, administrative, professional, and sales employees. Finally, most jobs are classified as either permanent or temporary. So a temporary job lasts only for a limited period of time and may be either part-time or full-time. A good example is retailers that hire extra employees during the holiday season because that's usually their busy time of the year. A permanent position is one that is expected to continue without a specific ending date. Once you decide it's time to get a job, whether you're still in school, looking for your first full-time job, or just thinking about changing jobs, then it's time to put together a resume and brush up on your interview skills. So here's a list of things your resume should include. Of course, a short personal profile, which describes how your qualifications match your job for which you're applying, a list of accomplishments. It should also have volunteer work and affiliations with clubs and service organizations, your work history, which should include any relevant internships you've had, your educational background, a statement of references, wherever possible, quantify your accomplishments. So some examples might be if you met 100% of your project goal on time and or on budget, if you developed a new process that reduced costs or improved customer satisfaction in your company. Now, if you're applying for a job that requires an application instead of or in addition to a resume, you may need to know things like your supervisor's name or contact information for your previous jobs, as well as your previous pay rates and the address of those employers. Remember that your school's career center or career office is a great resource. They can help you review your resume, do mock interviews with you, and get you prepared for that first job and preparing to interview for that job. Now, here are just some guidelines for handling the interview and following up when it's over. Arrive to the interview at least 15 minutes early. This shows you're prepared and excited about getting the job. So be yourself and take your time when answering questions. Try not to sound like you've rehearsed it. Think of the interview like a meeting to find out if you and your company are a good match. So make sure your body language shows a professional image. Have a resume with you. It's always professional to have a resume ready to pass out at the interview. Ask for a business card so you'll remember names and know where to email thank you notes later on. Inquire about a hire time. It's okay to ask the interviewer when they will make a hiring decision. Now, after the interview, you can send a thank you note, and it's okay to email those as well. Also, you might want to call your employer. And that way, if you haven't heard from the interviewer in about a week, or for the time that you've asked, if they said it's going to take 2 weeks to hire and you hadn't heard from them in that 2-week period, then give them a call to check on the job status. Now, if you are looking for a job that's paid by the hour, and that is a non-exempt employee, then there's some important things to know. And the first thing is tips. Now, the government requires most employers to pay hourly workers a minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is currently set to $7.25 per hour. Now, some employers may pay their staff less than that if they can reasonably expect tips to make up the difference. If you're a waiter, waitress, bartender, or cleaning staff, you may receive an hourly wage that is less than the federal minimum wage, and you will also receive tips as part of that pay. Now, your tips may go into a tip pool. All employees in a pool have to chip in a portion of their tips, which are then divided among a group of employees. Employees can't be required to share their tips with employees who don't usually receive tips, and that would be, for example, dishwashers or cooks. Now, tips from a tip pool cannot go to employers, or in some states, managers or a supervisor. Now, your tips are taxable, so you should report your tips to the employer on IRS Form 4070 every month, and then your employer is responsible for collecting and paying taxes. If you are a non-exempt employee, you're not exempt from earning overtime. So if you work more than 40 hours per week, you will earn overtime pay. So let's imagine that you've been hired as a non-exempt employee at a rate of $10 per hour. And you've already worked 40 hours for the week, but your boss says, hey, can you pull another shift this weekend at time and a half? So let's figure out how much you would get paid. So you normally would get paid less than $80 an hour, or $80, and that's for an 8-hour shift. So you take your $10 per hour rate times 8 hours, and that equals $80. And it's a little less than 80 because of taxes. Now, time and a half usually means you get paid the normal rate plus half, or 1.5 times the normal rate. So in this case, you'd multiply 1.5 times the hourly rate of $10 to see that the overtime rate is approximately $15 per hour. So your extra weekend shift will earn you a little less than $120. So that would be $15 an hour times that 8-hour shift, and that equals $120. And that would be $40 more than a regular weekend shift. But because company policies and state laws vary, overtime doesn't always necessarily mean time and a half. So be sure to check with your employer about their policy. Now, when you're thinking about or looking for a part-time job, there are some important questions to ask. So 1, if you're in school, will your employer agree to schedule your work hours around your class schedule? Or are there any opportunities to advance or earn a pay raise? And you want to ask them if they offer any benefits, whether for full-time or part-time employees. Now, questions you want to ask yourself are, can you realistically work the number of hours that you're expected to work while you're in school and still able to focus on your studies and get good grades? Another thing to think about is if you'll need transportation to get to the job. How will you handle that? If you have a car, how much will it cost in gas for you to drive back and forth? If you have to take a bus or public transportation, then check those bus routes and schedules to make sure that option will meet your needs. Now, externships and internships can be great for learning and working before you enter your career. Internships are formal agreements, usually lasting between a couple of months or a year, and may be paid or unpaid, and may provide academic credit. An externship is generally a shorter, less formal experience and does not typically provide pay or academic credit. Earlier in your education, these programs can help you decide if a certain major or career is a good fit for you. As you near graduation, you'll likely use these opportunities to get some on-the-job training and start building a network of contacts within your industry. Since internships may be unpaid, it is important to think about whether the potential long-term payoff is worth the short-term lack of pay. Now, if you decide to look for an internship or externship, talking with staff in your career services area or your academic advisor may be a good place to start. Also, professors in your area of study may be also able to provide you some suggestion or leaves of some openings or companies to look into. You can also look online for resources to find an internship or externship. If you have family or friends who are involved or working in a career that you're interested in, you may ask them if they're aware of any opportunities or if they can check with their employee if there's any openings as well. Job shadowing is an ideal way to learn firsthand about day-to-day work of a professional in a career field of interest to you. It differs from an internship because it's short-term, offers no payment, but it does help you gain an insider's view into a particular field. And it can open the door for future internships or job opportunities. Whatever approach you take, be proactive. Many of these programs can be very competitive. Now we're going to talk about earning salary. Now, while earnings for an hourly position can fluctuate, it's easier to figure how much your earnings will be each month when you earn a salary. So you simply divide the annual salary by 12. If you're paid twice a month, then you divide your annual salary by 24. Now, working hourly, your paycheck can change from week to week. So if you normally work 25 hours a week, for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you only work 10 hours that next week, then your paycheck will be less than what you normally expect, and you may need to budget appropriately. So just be mindful of that if you are someone who's working hourly, that you want to look at those hours, especially if you're working less than what you're used to. Now, generally, when you're offered a job, you have some flexibility to negotiate the job offer, which just means asking for a higher salary or better benefits or both. Now, when an employer offers you a job, they'll tell you how much they're willing to pay you, but your new employer may expect you to negotiate with the counter offer. So it's important to negotiate with the higher base pay because other benefits may be calculated as a percentage of your base pay. And base pay just means your salary, not including things like bonuses or commissions, raises, retirement contributions, and other benefits are often based on a percentage of base pay. If you're not sure about whether it's appropriate to negotiate for a specific job, again, check with that career services office, and that way they can give you an average salary or additional details for that particular career and what the pay may be for your area. Now, you don't want to feel pressured to decide on a job offer as soon as it's offered. It's okay to ask for some time to think about it before you accept or decline the offer. So before you ask for a higher salary, do some research on average and entry-level salaries for your career. So go print out some descriptions with salary ranges, and have them ready to look at when you have the negotiation conversation. Think about how your qualifications and experience meet the position posting and the needs of the company combined with market rates. If the employer asks for your reason for asking for higher pay, you can then tell them about your research. Sometimes people are nervous or hesitant about negotiating, but remember, they chose you for this job and they've already invested time and money in recruiting you. They don't want to lose you now. Now, your salary is just one piece of the puzzle. So remember when you're negotiating that one, the employer may come back with an offer that's lower than you request with the goal of settling on a number somewhere in between. So when you're going into negotiations, if you aren't successful at negotiating a higher salary, you can ask for other benefits, like maybe paid time off, a more flexible work schedule, parking expenses or cell phone expenses paid, or maybe them paying for you to attend a conference or any career related training, or reimbursing you for any type of business related expenses. Another factor to take into account when you're thinking about salary offers is cost of living. The cost of living is the amount it costs to pay on your basic expenses in a specific geographic location. This includes things like housing, food, transportation, and fuel, as well as utilities and healthcare. Now, pay scales will be different in different cities and states. So for example, a job in Des Moines, Iowa may pay less than the same job in Austin, Texas, but it's possible to be better off with less pay because the cost of living may be less. What matters is the value you get from your pay. Now, employers may offer many of the benefits listed here. Some of the traditional benefits are on the left-hand side, like time off, insurance, which can include medical, dental, vision, life, and or disability insurance, and of course, retirement. Now, the ones on the right might be other benefits that employers may offer, and that could be anything from tuition reimbursement to flexible work hours. If you're in a sales position, you may earn a commission, and commissions are a percentage or a set amount your employer may offer for reaching a sales goal. You may also earn bonuses if you or the company meets certain performance expectations. Now, employee benefits are worth a lot of money and can increase your total compensation. On average, they can increase your total compensation by 32%. Now, it's important to think carefully about how you will afford to live after you retire. Most people use a combination of income from several sources. When it comes to retirement planning through your employer, there are two categories of retirement plans. The defined benefit plans pay a retirement benefit based on a formula that considers factors like your length of employment, age, and salary. You may have heard of these plans called pension plans. With the pension plan, when you retire, you know in advance how much money you'll receive each month, but generally defined benefit plans do not include cost of living increases or increases in benefits due to inflation. Now, under a defined contribution plan, which essentially is a savings account for retirement, money from your pay is deposited to a retirement account in your name. The value of the account can increase or decrease depending on how well the money was invested. You've heard of a 401k, a 457, or a 403b plans, and those are examples of defined contribution plans. Under these plans, you will not know how much your monthly income will be after you retire. And that's because these plans are made up of investments which can lose or earn money over time. Now, when you're comparing job offers, we've learned that you need to think about salary, cost of living, and benefits, but depending on your circumstances, you may also want to consider additional factors. If you have to relocate to take the job, how much will that cost? Will the employer be willing to assist you with relocation expenses? What is the employee vesting schedule? In other words, how long will you have to work at the company before you own certain benefits, such as shares of stock or employer contributions to your retirement account? If you have a spouse, a partner, and or child, the employer may offer insurance coverage to them as well, but perhaps at additional cost. So you need to figure out how much that will cost. whether or not you have to relocate, what will the commute be like? So you can estimate travel times, estimate gas costs. In some large cities, parking or tolls can be very expensive. So be sure to take that account when you're thinking about all those different salary options. Now, here are some links to resources to help you with a few of the items discussed in this presentation. Of course, the first one will help you with resumes, as well as your career services office can also help you with that. The second one, the BLS.gov, will allow you to research more into different careers, see their salary and what it would be like to have that position. And the last resource will help you with cost of living. So you can put in a different city to see what the cost would be like if you were to be living there. Thank you for joining our presentation on Work and Earn.